incurable form of non-Hodgkin's. It was throughout my abdomen and throughout my chest, along my aorta, and down the path of my spine. And as you can imagine, I was completely freaked out. I was
Excuse me, just
very concerned.
One moment. Were you blindsided, like you had no health issues that just came out of the middle of nowhere?
It really did come out of nowhere in the sense that I didn't expect that. I knew that something wasn't right. I had some horrible back pain, and I kept sort of putting it off to say, oh, well, I must have lifted a suitcase the wrong way, or well, maybe I'm not sitting properly at work. I even had the ergonomics expert come in, and he said, yes, you're not sitting properly at work. So I kept trying to sort of brush it off, and it just got worse and worse and worse, and I had this horrible deep fatigue that just would not go away, and the pain and the fatigue was just overwhelming, and to the point where there were days, I'm a teacher by trade, and there were days when I would have to, as the students left my room, I'd go and lock the classroom door, turn off the lights, and go and lie down behind my filing cabinets to just try and have a little bit of break. And it was just a horrible feeling because I knew something is seriously wrong. So when I went to see my doctor, he actually took one look at me and he said, you're not well. And, he did a very thorough examination, and my husband happened to have been in the waiting room, and he looked at me and he said, would you like your hubby to come in while I talk to you about this? And I knew at that moment that something very wrong was happening with my body. So that really began what I refer to as the dance of tests and procedures and some pretty difficult and humiliating procedures as well, because your body suddenly becomes this science experiment.
Wow.
And there are doctors talking about all kinds of things that you don't know what they're saying. It's completely over your head. Unless you're in the medical field, you really don't know about this stuff. So it was quite difficult to take, and I was also extremely concerned about how it was going to affect my family. I went through a range of emotions. I think one of the first things I said after I learned the diagnosis was that, I really wanted to be here to hold my grandchildren one day. And then I went through from there this fear of, oh my God, I'm going to die, because there was everything that I knew about cancer. It was you go bald, you throw up, and then you die. And so I had to sort of really dig deep and say, oh my gosh, how am I going to get through this? Because I have so much to live for.
Now, can I ask you how old you were when you got struck?
I was 42 at the time.
Wow. And you had a family and kids and the whole bit, huh?
Exactly. I have my husband and I have actually been together since I was 14 years of age, believe it or not. And, we are each other's best friends, and he is my rock, I call him. He has always been that way, and we have two incredibly beautiful children we're so proud of. That was the first year that they had, in fact, it was that fall, they had just gone off to school. My daughter went to Prince George, BC to begin her degree in nature-based tourism management, and my son went off to Castlegar, BC to do his aviation. So, we're very proud of them, and I was actually just sort of getting to the point of thinking, wow, how do I fill the time and space now that the kids are away at school? Suddenly my thoughts changed to, how am I going to tell my children that their mother has cancer? So it was quite an adjustment.
Now, is this? I want to get into the book in a moment, but just real quick, without getting into too much detail, is this where the idea for the book came in? How to tell your family, how to communicate with your family?
That came later, but basically what happened was that as I was going through this and starting to feel as if, all these tests were obviously being done for me and to me, but I felt strangely that everything was being done without me. And I sort of felt victimized again. And then suddenly I just thought, you know what? You better get a grip on this. I mean, as a teacher, I was always telling my students to never give up. In fact, I had a poster in my classroom of I think it's a pelican that has a frog in its mouth, and the frog has the pelican by the throat, and the caption is "Never give up." And I refer to that quite often in teaching. when students were going through a difficult time. So there was that, and then I thought, you know what? You're always telling your students and your own children to take control of their own destinies and to get organized, and that with organization comes empowerment. And so I said, you know what, Linda, it's time to put your money where your mouth is.
Wow.
So I started carrying around with me a journal and my day planner and my list of questions and a binder, and I became what I call a bit of a difficult patient in the sense that I asked a million questions.
We love difficult patients. We love difficult patients.
Well, you know what? I think for me, it's a case of you are your own best advocate, and you know your body the best. Yeah. So medical science and your doctor are obviously going to take you to a certain place, but it's up to you to make sure that they have all the information they need about you and your history and maybe your genetic makeup, in terms of your family medical history and that sort of thing. And I think part of that for me was, as I went through the process, I kept looking for something to record all of these details that suddenly had become important, and it just wasn't out there.
And that's what you're thinking with the book, and I don't want to get into the book just yet because I want to find out, how did you reverse this thing? Now you're completely in remission, right?
I am, yes.
How did you do that? How did you do it? Help our listeners. Help anybody out there listening who's dealing with cancer or has a loved one dealing with cancer. What did you do to remit?
Okay. So what happened was I went through, I'll give you a real quick outline here, is I went through 4 months of full chemotherapy, followed by a protocol of 2 years of maintenance chemotherapy, which was once every 3 months. After that, they did another CT. Of course, there had been many along the way, but at that point, I did a CT and found that there were 2 nodes left that were quite stubborn, and so I was in partial remission for a little while there.
Linda, hang tight. We got to take a break, okay?
Sure.
Hang tight, and we'll finish this up, and I want to get into your book specifically. We're talking to Linda Peterson about her book, The Healing Journal. You're listening to The Bright Side. I'm Pharmacist Ben. We're coming back right after this. Don't go away.
Hello, it's Tom Chenault from The Tom Chenault Show. We are experts in home-based business and residual income. We show people how to make money from their home, either part-time or full-time, and in partnership with Genesis Communication Network, we've organized a team to fight back about people not having money, time, or health. And we need your help. What we want you to do is, if you've got an interest in building an organization to fight back against people taking our money, taking our time, and taking our health, we want to talk to you. All you need to do is call this number, 855-308-8326. Again, all you want to do is call 855-308-8326. You can make a tremendous amount of money and end up fighting for a great cause. Please call us right now.
Healthy elimination is essential to high energy, a cheerful mood, and prevention of disease. Some of the founders of our modern holistic health thinking state that disease begins in a toxic colon. A toxic intestinal tract is the foundation for virtually all degenerative disease, and a clean and well-moving intestinal tract is the foundation of health.
I just want to say that you folks have an amazing product. I've taken whey protein products for years, and I've never noticed the results I have with your product. I've suffered with bouts of constipation most of my life. Within a few days of taking One World Whey, I noticed a dramatic change. Also, in the past few years, I've experienced symptoms associated with diabetes. I feel horrible when I've had too much sugar, and I've been getting the foot pain as well. But I've noticed in the past week or so, I'm not feeling bad anymore, and the foot pain is gone. I'm just finishing up a 5-pound tub I ordered and just got off the phone ordering more. I love your product. Thank you.
Call 888-988-3325. That's 888-988-3325. Or visit oneworldwhey.com. That's oneworld.com.
At 30dayfoodsupply.com, you can now purchase a one-of-a-kind product not available anywhere else. A meatless burger dry mix in 4 delicious flavors. With our new Oregon Trail Foods vegan burgers, all you do is add water and fry. They need no refrigeration. They're packaged in Mylar bags with an oxygen absorber for a long shelf life. They're non-GMO. They're gluten, soy, nut, and chemical-free, but they're loaded with flavor. And a good source of carbs and protein, yet low in sodium. Flavors include Italian, spicy Mexican, chicken, 6 vegetable, and black bean olive. Go to 30dayfoodsupply.com or call 541-229-0010 and order today. Eat them every day, take them camping, or save them for an emergency. Check them out at 30dayfoodsupply.com and click on the vegan burger icon. That's 30dayfoodsupply.com, where all of our products are produced in Oregon by Oregon Trail Foods. 30dayfoodsupply.com.
Virtually anyone can hack your cell phone and track your calls, your texts, your emails, your every movement, but only if they can detect a signal. Stay one step ahead of hackers and Big Brother with a Block-It Pocket, a custom-made pocket infused with pure silver that creates a complete Faraday enclosure for your cell phone. For free shipping to the lower 48, visit blockitpocket.com or call 888-315-9618. blockitpocket.com, enhancing health and privacy.
How many good people procrastinate? When was the last time you updated your last will and testament, your living will, and your healthcare power of attorney? If you could get these documents included with your Legal Shield membership for no additional charge, wouldn't it just make sense to have the peace of mind of owning a Legal Shield membership? Worry less and live more with lsprotection.com. That's lsprotection.com or call 855-340-SAVE. That's 855-340-7283.
Results will vary from case to case.
Not just an alternative to the mainstream media. We're the premier independent talk radio network. We are GCN.
The GCN Radio Network.
All right, we're back on the bright side. I'm Pharmacist Ben, and we're talking to Linda Peterson about her book, The Healing Journal. Linda? You were talking about chemo and some of the things that you had to go through to go into remission, and I want you to finish up talking about the chemo thing, but then I want to know if you went into any nutritional strategies, what you did in terms of diet and food. We talk a lot about nutrition on this program. I'd like to hear how you use that as well. So finish up with the chemo, tell us about nutrition, and then I want to get into the book a little more specifically.
All right, perfect. So as I was saying, I went through, had the 2 years of maintenance chemo. They found that there were still 2 stubborn nodes behind the chest wall that could not be biopsied, so the decision was made to sort of leave it be. And so I picked up the pieces of my life and carried on, and I'll talk about how I did that in a couple seconds here. So it carried on with my life. I actually hiked the Grand Canyon with my father, which was a lifetime dream of both of ours, and that was incredible. And I went on a trip with my husband, and then it came back. That deep fatigue came back. All too familiar pain was back, and the cancer had transformed to something called diffuse large B-cell lymphoma, which, as I understand it, Ben, is just a faster-growing cousin of the original cancer. So there were more tests and procedures, and then the decision was made that I would have a stem cell transplant using my own stem cells, which was incredibly frightening, as you can imagine. It involved 3 more rounds of full chemo to cleanse my body of as much cancer as possible before extracting my stem cells. At that point, I was admitted to the hospital, underwent 6 days of high-dose chemotherapy, sometimes twice a day, and then the stem cells were given back to me. And, of course, all the effects of chemo intensified to the point where, at one point, my white blood count was 0.0, which was extremely frightening on the one hand, but really exciting on the other, because that was the goal, essentially, to wipe the slate clean so that my stem cells could create healthy bone marrow. And I'm happy to report that I am now cancer-free. So awesome. It worked. It was fantastic. But, it has been a long journey, and there have been a lot of things that I did on my own, which I call healing strategies, and diet is a huge part of that. I had always been a pretty healthy eater, but I think I just sort of went on the idea of, yes, I know that fruits and vegetables are good for me and low fat, et cetera, but I didn't really understand the concept of what I was putting in my body and why. Whereas now I've taken a much greater interest in the foods I eat and what they actually do for you. So, for example, I eat a diet that's really rich in antioxidants. I make sure that I have, for example, Brazil nuts every day because they are high in selenium, which is very good for me. And I like to look at different foods that I know have cancer-fighting properties in them. Not that I have cancer anymore, as far as I know, hopefully never, ever will again, but in terms of prevention. So, what you eat to me, I mean, we really have to think about these things. What are you putting in your body?
Right. How about exercise?
Yes, absolutely. You know, even when I was going through chemo, I still exercised every single day. Now, some days I was so sick that the exercise for me was as simple as just moving my toes and a little bit of stretching and